He looks like a dreamer, writes poetry, and is the father of India's missile program. Abul Pakir Jainullah bin Abdul Kalam is India's president, and Dr. APJ Kalam, 71, can quote with equal ease from the Holy Quran and the Bhagavad Gita. Known as the Missile Man, he can just as easily talk about missile technology and his musical instrument Veena in the same breath. Political commentator Inder Malhotra says Prime Minister Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's nomination of Dr. Kalam, who led a team that conducted India's 1998 nuclear tests, was a politically correct stroke in the wake of the religious riots in Gujarat that erupted in February.
Dr. Kalam wasn't the ruling combination's first choice, but when the ruling alliance found that they couldn't get other people in, they zeroed into him because they knew that he would be highly acceptable. And this was vindicated when, as soon as his name was mentioned, the Congress, major opposition party, as well as others came along except for the left. So one factor of general acceptability was a deciding one. His religion, which is after all the result of an accident of birth, was not irrelevant, but was not the main factor. Generally people felt that after what has gone on in the country, the communal feelings aroused by various reasons, but most of all by Gujarat, it probably would be a good idea to have a Muslim president.
To Dr. Kalam, the events in Gujarat were a painful manifestation of religious feelings that could not attain a higher level of spirituality.
What has happened in Gujarat, your question, isn't it? What has happened in Gujarat is very painful, very painful. We should prevent it at all costs. I can only say, watch what I'm saying, I can only say whether religion can get graduated into a spiritualism. Whether can managers turn into leaders? A lot of difference between managers and leaders. Can the political leaders turn into political leaders with compassion? No compassion. Political leaders turning into the political leaders with compassion. Can our education system work for 100% literacy? This integrated effort may give a solution for such type of problem.
Now the country will have its third Muslim president at a time when India and its Islamic neighbor Pakistan are locked in a military standoff. Inder Malhotra says Dr. Zakir Hussain and Mr. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed came into the presidential race for reasons purely political.
The first Muslim to be president, Dr. Zakir Hussain, was vice president when the president's term ended. And even though Kamraj, a very influential leader, wanted a second term for Dr. Radhakrishnan, Indira Gandhi refused to accept it. And she indeed said that people might wonder why Zakir Sahab was not made there, and that idea went through and Zakir made a very good president. Second Muslim to follow Zakir Sahab was Mr. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. He was a minister for long standing, and I think he was chosen because Indira Gandhi believed that she needed in Rashtrapati Bhavan somebody who will do her bidding, and because she had an overwhelming majority, she could get anybody elected. And this calculation proved right when the emergency proclamation, though not endorsed by the Council of Ministers, was signed by Mr. Ahmed almost on the dotted line.
Political analyst T.R. Ramachandran describes the appointment of Dr. Kalam, a technocrat, as a welcome departure from the past.
Well, I think all in all it sends a very strong message, both in India's neighborhood and abroad, that this country is willing to accept a non-politician. This is the first time that a technocrat enters the high office of president in India. Indeed, the departure since the country attained independence is seen as a good augury, as for the first time we have a non-politician enter the high office who has a dream and a vision of making India strong, self-reliant and industrialized by the year 2020.
With no signs of the troops pulling back and India demanding Pakistan rein in the militants, there are fears things could turn to the worse between the neighbors. But Dr. Kalam firmly believes that India's nuclear capability can act as a deterrent rather than precipitate a nuclear war.
Even the recent warfare, you would have seen that. Why it did not take place? If we did not have a nuclear weapon, it would have taken place. This nuclear deterrent both sides is help not to engage in a big war to avoid the nuclear war.
Dr. Kalam, whose dainty grey locks make him resemble an aging rock star, is a bachelor who was born to illiterate parents on an island in the southern Bay of Bengal. His father, Jainullah bin Marakayar, imbibed in him honesty and self-discipline, while his mother, Ashiamma, was a fountainhead of faith in goodness and kindness. Being the youngest in the family, he was pampered a lot. As a child, Dr. Kalam was fascinated by the flight of seagulls. His interest in flight led to a degree in aeronautical engineering and eventually to his supervising the development of India's guided missiles. His sister Nasima Begum says Dr. Kalam's dreams to conquer flight began at an early age.
I think about 7 years old, he woke up early morning and went to the tuition for studies in Samia school along with our father. The tuition was up to 7 o'clock. After that, he read Quran and then 9 o'clock he went to school. One time he participated in the essay competition and got a prize. In that essay, he wrote that he dreamed he flied over the sea and landed on the top of the house.
Dr. Kalam began his studies at the Samiyar school in Rameshwaram and moved to Schwartz School in Ramanathapuram town. Graduation from St. Joseph's College in Tiruchi. His sympathy for the deprived and the suffering is brought out by his association with Banyan, a home for the mentally challenged in Chennai. Anuradha, a social worker with Banyan, says Dr. Kalam was overwhelmed by the Banyan service.
Actually, our association with Dr. Kalam started with us inviting him for our anniversary function. Dr. Kalam visited the Banyan a day before the anniversary function of the Banyan, and he spent close to 2 hours with all the residents over here. He in fact spent a lot of time speaking to them, finding about their background, what happened to them, why they landed up on the roads and why they were here. And most of our residents were also very happy to share their experiences with him, because we did tell them that he is the person who's behind India's defense program and all that, and our residents were also very, very enthusiastic about it, and they kept asking him as to, why he was not married yet.
Dr. Kalam is a bachelor with a Spartan lifestyle as a vegetarian and a teetotaler. His sister Nasima Begum says he picked up this habit from his elder brother Qasim Muhammad.
Normally in our family, non-vegetarian and vegetarian are there. Vegetarian, non-vegetarian, whatever it may be, they like in our house. But most probably, Kalam's elder brother Qasim Muhammad also vegetarian.
Father George, who is guided by Dr. Kalam at the Southern Anna University, describes him as a deeply religious man who respects all religions.
He is a deeply religious one, at the same time above all religions. He is freed from all sorts of limitations imposed by any religion. We used to talk about Quran, Gita and Bible. And Ignatius Loyola is one of his very favorite saints. Like Ignatius Loyola, go to every place and give the message of healing. This is always his message for service. And to do hard work, a prepared mind only gets the answer. God helps only those who help themselves. Therefore, try and always study, always ponder over the ideas. Even in the dreams, you will get new ideas.
Dr. Kalam is not a stereotyped technocrat.
Nearly for about an hour, I spent in a day for the prayers which I have imbibed from my father. regularly. Only I cannot do it as demanded, but in 2 lots I do that prayer. Now, the question, if you ask science, religion and spirituality, my belief is the foundation for science is reasoning. You go on reasoning. Reasoning and questioning and gives out scientific results, true results. In spirituality, up to certain point, you can go in dialogue, in discussion. Then you have to believe certain things. Spirituality is built on the faith. You have to believe. The spirituality and religion becomes a friend to him, apart from his normal career.
When it became certain that he would become president, Dr. Kalam quoted from the Bhagavad Gita to reflect his feelings.
எது நடந்ததோ அது நல்லாகவே நடந்தது. எது நடந்ததோ அது நல்லதாகவே நடந்தது. எது நடக்கிறதோ
Whatever happened has happened for the good. Whatever is happening for the good. And whatever will happen for the good, he said. As a rocket scientist with the Indian Space Research Organization, he is credited for the success of India's first satellite launch vehicle in 1980. Dr. G. Madhavan Nair, head of Indian Space Research Organization at Thiruvananthapuram, recounts Dr. Kalam's contribution to space science.
Dr. Kalam was one of the persons handpicked by Dr. Sarabhai, who was the founding father of space research activities in India. He has joined the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station in 1963, and he was one of those initial team who has launched the first sounding rocket from the Tumba. He was instrumental for making the first series of rockets called the Menaka rockets for meteorological studies. In the early 70s, he has been assigned the responsibility of developing India's first satellite launch vehicle, SLV-3. With this untiring effort and his leadership, the first satellite launch vehicle SLV-3 was developed within a period of nearly 10 years, and the first successful launch of this took place in 1980, placing a Rohini satellite into a low Earth orbit. So this has made India the one among the 6 nations who have the capability to launch the satellites on their own.
To Dr. Kalam, the development of science meant better technology for multiple civilian purposes.
Technology you can develop for space. Technology you can develop for the defense. Technology you can develop for atomic energy. But finally, every technology has to have a flow into the multiple civilian life.
Dr. Kalam, in his book, India 2020, Vision for the New Millennium, said that he has 3 visions for India. His first vision is that of freedom. His second vision for India is development. Dr. Kalam's third vision is that India must stand up to the world.
We have to dream and we have to achieve India as a developed country. What it means, developed country? It means India economically a stronger nation, one of the few stronger countries. And India will have its own on security, national security will be self-reliant. Third, India's voice will be heard internationally. This is called a developed country. For that, you have to have a tool to convert, to transform India from developing country to developed country. The tool, only tool we see today, a faster and a good success will bring is technology. Technology will be the tool to transform this nation as a developed India.
Dr. Y.S. Rajan, his co-author, narrates the central theme of the book.
Central theme is, it is now possible for India to become a developed country, the way it is defined, free from poverty, big economy, having some strategic critical strength and continue to grow and have a rightful place in the comity of nations. All this is possible. For doing so, in addition to various other measures, one should also worry about enabling people with a variety of forms of technologies at the right levels, and that is also an important component. With that built in an integrated manner, food security, economic security, social security and national security can be achieved to make a developed India.
Through the 1980s, Dr. Kalam worked with the Defense Research and Development Organization, heading integrated missile development. Much of his fame comes from developing surface-to-surface and surface-to-air missiles that include the nuclear-capable Agni and Prithvi missiles with a maximum range of 3,500 kilometers. Dr. V.K. Saraswat, a missile technologist with DRDO, says it was Dr. Kalam who helped the organization to harness its inherent strength.
Main change which Dr. Kalam brought about is that way one can work out the strength of the organization. Each organization has got certain strength, and harnessing the strength of the organization to deliver and focus these strengths into delivering the systems. That is what the greatest thing Dr. Kalam did when he joined DRDO. The strengths which were available in DRDO, they were harnessed properly and put into a form of a program, and the proof of the pudding is that you have delivered systems today because of that kind of a harnessing of the strength of DRDO.
Dr. Kalam says India has reached a position where it can produce missiles on a commercial basis.
India is a missile power. That's very important. Any type of missiles you can design, develop, lead to production.
He is also a staunch believer in Indian military self-sufficiency and ability to handle any crunch situation.
If a weapon is made, the guys should know it is not for storing, it is for deployment. Okay? If it has been deployed, naturally they are the right fellows to think about the command and control.
Dr. Kalam described the nuclear tests as the culmination of the development of nuclear technology in India, leading to nuclear weaponization. The tests, he said, were the result of many years of work by our nuclear scientists and defense technologists. They have generated a very important database on the fission device as well as on the fusion system. Today, India is a nuclear weapon state, he stated when asked about what India achieved with the nuclear tests.
These events on the two dates in May establishes is India, as our Prime Minister said, India is a nuclear weapon state. So one should look at it. The nation can see that both we are a missile power and a nuclear weapon state. This is the important significance of the event.
Dr. Y.S. Rajan describes Dr. Kalam's concept of nuclear deterrence.
This type of the nuclear doctrine, we said, the basic thrust which he said was, in no country and is of the size of India and in the current context can afford not to have a deterrent of this, especially when many others possess it. And in that context, he said, a strong, responsible country like ours is not going to be worried about getting into wrong adventurism. But the existence of it makes it that others don't hit. If we possess this capability, then others become much more circumspect before trying to attack, even by conventional means.
As President, Dr. Kalam may be required to manage hung parliaments, as it is the duty of the President to decide which party to ask to form a government in the event of a fractured election outcome, a regular feature since the 1990s. Political analyst Pran Chopra says Dr. Kalam's lack of political experience would not be a handicap.
I think being above party politics is a very important qualification in a president, and it will help him to maintain that quality by not being himself a product of party politics. I think Dr. Abdul Kalam will bring to his office something a lot more valuable. and which is not only more valuable but also a great deal more needed, and it is very difficult to get only through knowledge of the clauses and sub-clauses of the Constitution or the nitty-gritty of parliamentary or presidential politics. He will bring to the office a sense of eminence, a distinction of authority, of public standing, and not merely a product of party politics.
Dr. Vasant Govarikar, eminent scientist, says the presence of Dr. Kalam as the head of the country can do wonders for education and science.
His presence will help to raise this thing. I think it's very required, both in education and science. The investment has to go up.
Dr. Y.S. Rajan says the saga of Dr. Kalam is a rare combination of hard work and ability to motivate others.
One is the ability to do the work at hand, which is to be done with a lot of short-term goals, with a lot of gusto and belief, even while retaining a faith in a somewhat of a much longer time span, 15, 20 years. This is one. Then number two is the ability to work with a large number of teams, keep working with them, making everybody motivated, and in the process even absorb many of the pains of the team members, many of the pains of the failures, and then take it along. These two are the very important characteristics which I can say a good human being type of thing. This is what has maintained him all along through the entire process of his career.
Raj Chengappa, executive editor India Today, says the elevation of Dr. Kalam as president is a fitting tribute to an ordinary man with extraordinary achievements.
So who can be a better candidate than a boat owner's son, whose sister had to pawn her jewelry to send him to college, who worked against tremendous odds, and then went on to make the nation proud of so many things.
Abdul Kalam,
do swear in the name of God,
do swear in the name of God,
that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of India,
that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of India,
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law,
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law,
and that I will devote myself to the service of the and well-being of the people of India,
and that I will devote myself to the service and well-being of the people of India.
The new president is signing a register which has been brought from Rashtrapati Bhavan, and this marks the formal transition of power from the 11th president to the 12th president.
Namaste. I wish to emphasize my unflinching commitment to the principle of secularism, which is the cornerstone of our nationhood and which is a key feature of our civilizational strength. When I travel across our nation, when I hear the sound of waves of the three seas around the shores of my country, when I experience the breeze of the wind from the mighty Himalayas, when I see the biodiversity of Northeast and our islands, and when I feel the warmth from the western desert, I hear the voice of a youth when I can sing a song of India, when I can sing a song of India. What can be the answer? I am very happy to see the children present here representing the future generation. Through them, I would like to convey the song of youth to all our country and also to the people. I will keep the lamp of knowledge burning to achieve the vision, developed India. May the divine peace with beauty enter into our people. Happiness
and good health blossom in our bodies, minds and souls. Jai Hind.
In one of his poems, Dr. Kalam wrote, "Dreams float on an impatient wind, a wind that wants to create a new order, an order of strength and thundering of fire. Maybe a new order will come into place when one of India's highest achievers occupies India's highest seat."
You were listening to a feature, The Saga of a Man Who Dared to Dream, scripted and produced by Rajaram Sukumar, AIR correspondent, narrated by Minoti Chatterjee. This program was presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio.